Hi, you're listening to PDHPE Pedagogies and Reflections, the podcast that is made by a pre-service teacher for pre-service teachers. Oliver Hancock is your host, and today we're joined by Christina Curry, Shane Pill, Richard Light, Richard Bailey, and a representative from New South Wales Education Standards Authority. This is episode 101. We'll be discussing the importance of teaching PHP and the game sense approach. We'll then delve into the reflection segment and reflect on the areas of PHPE. Finally, we'll reflect on the year that has been and highlight key learning takeaways from another year of teaching and learning about PHPE. Firstly, I'd like to kick things off by quoting the New South Wales PHPE syllabus by saying that the study of PHPE enables students from K-6 to enhance their health, well-being, safety and participation in physical activity. PHPE has significant value. I believe it greatly enhances student health, safety and well-being and promotes a positive lifelong relationship with physical education. I will open this question up to our guests. The representative from New South Wales Education Standards Authority, what do you think?
Hi, Oliver. Thank you for having me on. PHPE is incredibly valuable as it provides students with the necessary skills to strengthen their own and other attitudes towards health, well-being and safety. Students develop empathy, resilience, positive relationships, self-management, cognitive, emotional, social, interpersonal and movement skills through PHPE. Students learn to apply, critically analyse and challenge as they learn to advocate for their own and others' health, safety and well-being.
Very interesting. Does anyone have anything to add?
Christina Curry here, building on what you said earlier in respects to lifelong relationships to PDHPE. As a direct result of quality PDHPE, teaching students builds a lifelong relationship to health and physical activity. The teaching of PDHPE reduces a negative lifestyle and habits and is key in fighting obesity. Therefore, the teaching of PDHPE is so important.
Hi, Richard Bailey here, 2006. Not only the obvious physical effects, but there are also many other benefits of PHPE as well. The study of PHPE is sought to positively increase self-confidence, self-esteem, social and cognitive development. Very interesting. As PHPE is often perceived as not being as important as the other KLAs. However, you guys have argued to the contrary and placed PE as being equally important. So PHPE is important, but how do teachers effectively teach it? I keep hearing an effective approach that comes up. This is the game sense approach, or games for understanding. Can anyone shed some light on this approach for my pre-service teacher listeners?
Hi, Shane Pill here, 2014. The game sense approach moves away from your traditional teaching pedagogy in which the teacher teaches the skills separately, followed by a competitive game. The game sense approach is comprised of small-sided design games, modification of games for representation, modification of games to emphasize the skill, learner discovery through questioning and playing games with similar concepts of play such as striking and fielding or invasion games.
Sounds highly engaging. However, what does it look like in a real-life teaching scenario?
Hi, Shane Pill here and my associate Michael Hewitt, 2017. We have written an article on applying the game sense approach to tennis. In the article, we implemented the change-it formula to teaching tennis. This process assists the teacher in modifying the game by eliminating, refining, or adding to the rules or playing conditions. For example, increasing or decreasing the court size. These modifications should be made dependent on the skill, game, strategy, or outcome focus.
So you can tailor the learning to the individual and group needs. Sounds highly effective. However, how can we link the game sense approach to the New South Wales syllabus?
Hi, syllabus representative here. The game sense approach is linked to the strand movement, skill and performance. Movement, skill and performance focuses on participation with an emphasis being placed on confidence and competence when being active. Students also compose movement to achieve specific outcomes. These aspects align with the game sense approach as it promotes inclusivity, engagement and student-centered approaches. And PHPE syllabus PD4 requires students to perform movement skills in a variety of contexts. And PD5 requires students to demonstrate and apply strategies to movement challenges. These two outcomes relate to the game sense approach as students apply different movement skills in game contexts, as well as apply strategies to movements within a game.
This brings me to the question of what are the strengths of the game sense approach?
Zukulu and Associates 2014 found that as a result of the game sense model, improved player-coach relationship, increased motivation, increased match fitness, improved decision making, and lessons flowed more smoothly. Lessons were more active and increased the development of game skills. Okay, next up in the podcast, it is the reflection section.
Tutorial 2. My understanding of teaching PHPE before I studied it was very one-dimensional, with the belief that PHPE was not an important KLA. I believe that schools should reduce PHPE time. This is a common opinion amongst teachers. Christina Curry, 2012. This opinion is also applied to PHP syllabus, as I was under the impression that we couldn't be possibly made to embed cross-curricular priorities and general capabilities into the teaching of PHPE. I was in the mind that would be too hard. This opinion is echoed in Wickens and colleagues 2020, who found that pre-service teachers found the prospect of integrating literacy into physical education too difficult. However, after actively participating and engaging with my peers and tutor, the task of integrating cross-curricular priorities and general capabilities into PHPE became more manageable. I listened to my peers' suggestions as to how they could integrate cross-curricular priorities and general capabilities. Through this process, I engaged in peer learning as a pre-service teacher, such in Tuscan 2018. I found that this process added to my professional learning, as I found it easier through creativity to come up with ways to integrate these aspects into my teaching. My next question is that I know how to integrate cross-curricular and general priorities, but I don't know when to do it. This question was answered as throughout the syllabus, there are icons that are like prompts to alert the teacher that is applicable to integrate one of the cross-curricular priorities or general capabilities. I was skeptical as to how effectively I can integrate literacy and numeracy into PHPE, as I thought this could not be possible. After engaging in the content, I was able to see that the study of PHPE, there are clear literacy components: speaking, writing, reading, and listening. I also learned that I can involve both English and PHPE together through my content selection. For example, I can use a PHP context text in English to teach comprehension. I can involve mathematical concepts of calculate, measure, estimate, and interpret into my PHP lessons. Involving all the different general capabilities and cross-curricular priorities enables the lesson content to be more engaging. Tutorial 3. After my first prac, a professional goal of mine was to write a scope and sequence and a unit of work. Before learning how to write a scope and sequence, I merely thought a scope and sequence is just a roadmap of what you are teaching in a year, and the order of content did not matter. However, I have now learned that when writing a scope and sequence, it is important to select content that is relevant to the student's learning needs. For example, planning a water safety unit in the summertime is making learning more applicable. Looking at research is important when planning for teaching as well. Analysing the trends in up-to-date literature is a necessary component when writing a scope and sequence, ensuring that learning is relevant. This is supported by Costa and Goodboy 2020, who found that students benefit more cognitively and academically when learning is relevant. I benefited greatly when I analysed the trends in data and found that a high percentage of children had unrestricted snacking at their home, thus ensuring that I addressed that issue in my planning. I found this activity very interesting, as it made me think that as a teacher I can have some control in what I teach, as well as having a real impact in stopping and preventing some of the issues. This is different from what I previously thought, as I thought I had little control over what I taught, and I had to be very prescriptive in my teaching from the syllabus. In my future teaching, I now believe it is important for students learning to be supported with up-to-date and current events, issues, and not remain stagnant and repetitive, and to constantly change my teaching content to suit the needs of my future students. Ensuring that learning is relevant is integral when writing a unit of work. Before engaging with content, I thought that I had a good grasp of how to write a unit of work, with all the content being addressed, as well as providing teaching and learning strategies and applicable assessment strategies. However, I did not know that I had to have a reflection of my own, teaching as a component of the unit of work. I thought that you had to have an unofficial note as to whether your teaching is ineffective and the areas that you can improve. I did not know that it had to be an official component of the unit of work. This question sparked me to research reflection in teaching. I found that engaging in constant reflective practice is beneficial for ongoing professional development in teaching. Talk 2013. I will, as a future teacher, endeavour to engage in reflective practice as it will ensure that I grow as a teacher. Tutorial 6. Leading into the tutorial, I was still apprehensive as to how I could possibly adopt the game sense approach into a PHPE setting. I was concerned as to how students would learn the skills of the sport if they are just playing games all the time, how other people would perceive me if using this approach, if I had enough time to adopt this approach in my lessons, and finally, I was concerned at the prospect of relinquishing control and allowing for student input in terms of behaviour and quality learning. These perceptions are articulated in Light 2004. After engaging in the content, I was surprised to see the varied approach to the game sense approach. After viewing a series of videos, the teachers depicted in the videos tackled the approach differently. My previous notion was the game sense approach was very prescriptive with little allowances. I found this encouraging as I could get creative in my approach to this pedagogy. The content provided an answer to my question as to how I could implement the game sense approach into my lessons. I previously thought that my lessons would be totally different using the game sense approach, as I thought that students would not be able to warm up effectively and develop skills using the approach. After engaging in the content, I saw that the game sense approach followed the traditional sequence of physical education with a warm-up, skill development, game concepts, and a warm down. Knowing this made it easier to get my head around adopting the approach. My other question as to how I could plan physical education using the game sense approach is that I could use the categories of games to assist my planning in my scope and sequence. In an activity, I had to change different components of the lesson using the change it acronym. I found this particularly useful. As a teacher using this approach, I would have to think on my feet. I would have to change a part of the game to maximize student learning. For example, if the game, I know students cannot do long passes in soccer, I would use the change it acronym to allow students to develop the skill in a game situation. I find that the game sense approach is the most flexible approach to teaching, as I can change the lesson at any point to assist a student or group need. Tutorial 7. In my point in the degree, I felt comfortable in writing and planning lessons using current teaching and learning strategies. However, I noticed there was a gap in my knowledge how to plan an effective health and personal education lesson. My previous knowledge of this would be to set out a standard lesson format with an introductory activity or lesson hook, followed by a series of content activities and a reflection at the end. The way in which I would teach HPA would be no different to other KLAs. However, after engaging in the tutorial, I found there is a multitude of teaching and learning strategies associated with teaching HPA. During the tutorial, I was introduced to many highly engaging teaching strategies, including using case studies to teach content. I could use the lesson format of switch on, understand, and then act and apply. The switch on teaching strategies acted like the lesson hook. They include brainstorming, question box, and many more. One of the tutorial activities was to explore the wide range of learning activities on the Department of Education website and look into some of the teaching and learning strategies further. I found this very beneficial to my professional development, as I was able to add some strategies to my teaching repertoire. Through these teaching strategies, I was able to make my teaching more engaging. I found the teaching strategy of Jigsaw particularly beneficial to teaching HPE, as it enables students to research and report back and educate other students on the content, an especially beneficial tool in regards to time. In the teaching of HPE, I would have avoided sensitive content such as puberty when teaching. I felt as a male it would be too difficult to teach without massive backlash. This perception is supported by Duffy and colleagues 2013, who found that teachers were apprehensive teaching sensitive subjects at school. After engaging in the tutorial, I was given guidance on teaching sensitive subjects to students. I need to facilitate open communication within the classroom, allow for discussion and questions, present the content in a confident manner, Duffy and colleagues 2013. Finally, I need to plan for a debrief at the end of a lesson to allow students to process the content, ask questions, and clear up any myths. I found this particularly useful as I feel a little more confident to teach sensitive subjects with my future class. The tutorial highlighted the importance of teaching sensitive topics to students as it is highly beneficial, Goldman and Coleman 2013, and it has highlighted an area of my teaching pedagogy that I need to improve upon. The moment has arrived. My top 6 learning takeaways for this course are: number 1, the traditional approach to physical education is outdated and ineffective. Number 2, the game sense approach is one of the best ways to teach physical education. Number 3, the importance of creating an inclusive, supportive learning environment as a negative one can impact a student's relationship with physical activity for life. Number 4, how to write a scope and sequence effectively. Number 5, effective teaching and learning strategies. And number 6, how to plan and write a game sense approach physical education lesson. How did the learning activities relate to the content? The learning activities reinforce the content. In the course, we completed activities to enable us to put what we learnt into practice. J and B Wren, 2019. For example, when we learnt about the game sense approach, we had to write a lesson plan implementing this strategy. When we're learning about the change acronym, we had to provide examples of how we were going to use it. When we're learning about formative and summative assessment, we had to write our own assessment task. When we're learning about how to write a scope and sequence, we had to look at data to support our plans. How do I feel about teaching PHP after this course? Before I started the course, I saw myself as a great teacher of physical education, as I taught it for over a year and perceived the HPE aspect as easy to teach, as I thought I could use a similar approach that I would use to teach other subject areas. I could not have been more wrong in this. My general attitude was that what more could they teach me that I don't already know regarding PHPE? However, during this course I entered in deep reflection and started to see that my way of teaching PE was very traditional, as I often had students become disengaged, not have fun, and voice a dislike towards the lesson during my PE lessons. This encouraged me to have a complete mindset change and realise that my way of teaching was not effective and that I needed to make some serious changes. I now firmly believe that adopting the game sense approach will help improve my teaching. I now also realise I cannot apply all the same teaching pedagogies across subject areas as they are not always the best fit or applicable. I now have some new teaching and learning strategies that I can apply to the teaching of PHP. After the course, I feel more confident in the teaching of PHP. However, it is also highlighted that I'm only new to teaching and I have a lot more to learn. And that's all we have time for. See you next time for another episode of PHP Pedagogies and Reflections.